Hi everyone, Stepan here. Today we're going to talk about analyzing the chess mind, the newest book from the factory of Gulko and Sneed. Last week we have covered their Lessons with the Grandmaster series, which is a wonderful series, one of my favorites, where they go over games in the form of a lesson, and the games are annotated by both of them. So Boris Gulko explains the games, Joel Sneed asks questions, and then Boris Gulko corrects them. Now, analyzing the chess mind is different. First of all, it's been 10 years since the first books. And secondly, the topic is way more specific. It's not just Boris Gulko trying to teach Joel Sneed chess. They are in equal position when writing this book. So let me talk about them just briefly. So Boris Gulko is a Grandmaster, at his peak rated above 2600, well above. He is one of the very few players to have a plus score against Garry Kasparov. He's also the only player ever to hold titles of USSR and US champion, so an incredible accomplishment. He also has a degree in psychology from the University of Moscow. Dr. Joel Sneed is a clinical psychologist and a professor of psychology in New York. So he's also about 2000 rated. So they are two people who are professionals when it comes to psychology. And when it comes to chess psychology, they're probably the two best equipped people in the world at the moment. I had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Sneed. You're going to hear our interview where we had discussed the book in great depth. And he is going to give you actual insight into their writing process and everything related to the book. But now I'm going to give you my review, which is going to be brief, so that we can move on to the interview. So as I said, the first series, Lessons with the Grandmaster, was different. By the way, Joel was kind enough to send me an unscripted copy of the book. I thank you, Joel, once again. This book is differently structured to Lessons with the Grandmaster. It has 12 chapters. The first 11 deal with chess problems related to psychology and different things we can improve on as chess players. For example, our perception of the board, thinking and uncertainty, mind reading, aggression, self-confidence, psychology of decisive games, which is a great chapter. It goes over, how to approach games in which you need a draw, how to approach games in which you must win. Playing against losing winning positions, a question of time, improving your chess psychology. And improving your chess psychology is the final chapter, which I was going to get to. The final chapter was written by Dr. Sneed. It then deals with chess psychology and his personal struggle with chess psychology, which resonated with me the most. So before I get to that, let's talk about the chess portion of the book first. It's very, very useful to have psychological concepts explained by Boris Gulko. If you've seen my video on Lessons with the Grandmaster, you will know that Boris Gulko is a very strong player who annotates and explains positions incredibly well. Let's take, for example, chapter 3, titled Mind Reading in Chess. In the introduction, you can hear a quote by Judith Polgar. Chess is 30 to 40% psychology. You don't have this when you play computer. I can't confuse it. Let me just read you a brief portion. Korchnoi once said that there were 3 chess players who can read the thoughts of their opponents: Tal, Mecking, and Carlsen. This is one explanation behind the Norwegian phenomenon. He reads the thoughts of his opponents. Reading the thoughts of your opponent, however, is every chess player's job. Korchnoi once told me, Boris Gulko is writing this, after one of our games, that I had overlooked something when I sacrificed a pawn. I asked what made him think so. He had a very difficult position. And he said, because you thought for a very long time after the sacrifice. He was not thinking about my moves, but about my behavior and the fact that most of the time you think before the sacrifice as opposed to after it. Chess players try all the time to read the minds of their opponents. If the player is strong, we respect and consider carefully even dubious ideas, whereas if the player is weak, we are skeptical. And then there are games illustrating those examples. There is a chapter on aggression, and it begins by a quote by Kasparov, who says, when I was just starting out, I'm paraphrasing. I attacked because that was the only thing I knew how to do. Now I attack because I know it works best. So you get to hear practical chess advice through lessons about psychological problems players might have, and that's a great resource. And the 12th chapter, as I said, is Joel Sneed's personal struggle and also advice for players, written in a way chess books usually aren't written. This is almost a scientific paper, but you also get to hear his own struggles. And as you're going to hear in the interview, despite being a psychologist, despite working with Boris Gulko, Joel Sneed still struggles to deal with his own psychological issues during a chess game, and anxiety and fear and dealing with defeat. And that's why it was incredibly interesting to talk to him. We're going to move on to the interview now. See you afterwards. Hi, everyone. Stepan here. It's my great pleasure to welcome Joel Sneed, a doctor, a psychoanalyst, a professor of psychology, and the author of Analyzing the Chess Mind, together with Boris Gulko. They'd written Lessons with the Grandmaster, one of my favorite chess series, which we have talked about last week. Welcome, Joel.
Thanks for having me.
I always begin these by trying to encourage the author to talk. So what do you think is the most important thing you'd like to say about Analyzing the Chess Mind before my questions begin?
That's a tough question.
Excuse me.
No, what's the most important thing? I mean, what do you mean by most important thing? The thing that I liked most about it, or
what do you think?
Because there's a lot of stuff that I remember about that book that I really liked. But
well, what could impact readers the most?
You know, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot in the book, so that depending on who the reader is, they might gravitate towards different parts. So, I mean, I think the beginning starts off more about, I think, perception is the chapter title.
Yeah.
And it's about these kind of like curious positions that are like are kind of like weird geometrically or something like that. And I, you know, that's, I think, general. They're kind of like related to studies a little bit. But other than that, there are these themes in the book that you like, no matter who you are, you could go in and be like, oh, that's interesting. I really like Petrosian lacking self-confidence. What?
Yeah.
Like, and then, but maybe you lack self-confidence. Maybe I certainly lack self-confidence in chess. So maybe I would read that, you know, and be like, you know, interested in that theme, or you know, other themes that come up in the book that that might speak to someone more. You know, like I really, as we mentioned in the previous interview, I really like the Karpov Kasparov story. Really, the story is really great, and the quote from Kasparov's book, where he's talking about how he kind of was trying to get inside the mind of Karpov, and how important that world championship was, and how he changed as a player, trying to learn about Karpov, and literally started to play like Karpov. Can you imagine how good he got? Like, people, like, you know what I mean? If you think about it, here's this like attacking, you know, tall like genius, and then all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna add Karpov. And like, can you imagine, like, yeah, like, seriously, you know, greatest of all time contender, right? Anyway, so I mean, I thought that was really interesting part of the book. And also that was analyzing chess mind was the first time I got to write a chapter basically myself, which was that
12.
last
Yeah.
chapter 12, which in the United States is a what we refer to bankruptcy.
What?
Yeah, a firm files chapter 12, it's bankruptcy.
What's
Yeah,
chapter
yeah.
11? That's the only one I know.
Or maybe it's chapter 11.
I think it is.
Oh, maybe it's chapter 11. So it's not chapter 12. Great. That's excellent. And I'm impressed that you know my law better than I know my law.
No, I just know movie references. I must have heard
No,
it
that's right.
100
You're right. It's right. You're right. Chapter 11. Yeah. Chapter 12. I just made that up. But
There is a
anyway,
chapter 12, which is
that was
unclear what
my,
it is.
so that was my attempt to throw in some mainstream stuff around sports psychology, and really something that I hadn't seen a lot in chess, and how do you work on that stuff, right? Because I was struggling a lot with playing, with rating points, and it's still an issue. Like, I have not solved this problem. And I remember Boris, so just classic Boris. He, I was like, yeah, probably talk to him about it or something like that. And he puts his head in his hand. He's like, "What are you gonna do with these rating points?" He's like, "It's not like you're a professional. Like, they don't help you at all. Like,
Yeah.
just play, enjoy the game, try to learn from the game, and move on and play the next game. Like, what are you worried about these rating points for? You're not gonna. I remember, you're not gonna cash them in. It's not like you're at a casino and you're gonna cash in your rating points and get some money for it, right? And it's a
That's a valid
really
point, but
very valid point. Like, for our level, my level, it's just like,
how else are you supposed to measure your skill? How else are you supposed to? And I actually wanted to ask you that, since you, because of your professional background and what you do, you are far more experienced than most people and equipped to solve these problems. And as another digression, my favorite part of the book was your personal struggle with your own chess issues and how you were able to help people during sessions but unable to help yourself. What I wanted to ask you actually is, if we don't look at rating, if we don't consider rating important, if we don't struggle when we lose rating points, how else are we supposed to take chess seriously if that's the only measurement we have of this incredible effort we've put into something that without rating is a board game? I mean, to me, chess is way more than a board game. It's not like I'm playing, Catan with my friends and I lose.
right.
I honestly don't care. But when I lose a
Right.
game, I care because I'm accountable. I've rating points. So what he says is a valid point. But if we truly manage to, not care, then it becomes less valuable to us. What do you think about that?
Well, I haven't solved the problem. So I for myself, I know that what I write about in the chapter is in my quote unquote, the right way to think about it. I know that what Boris told me, which is, what are you going to do with these rating points that you speak of? Which I thought was really insightful in the end. Because I think it's honestly the truth, right? I could be, I think the answer is that if improvement is a process, then all of your, thinking about your chess performance. And by the way, Boris always looked at performance rating and not rating.
Yeah.
So, like, he would always look at how I performed in a tournament. And he would be like, wow, you won that tournament at the Marshall Club and your performance rating was 2150. That means that you could play at a level of 2150. right? And so that was a nice way to think about it. Like he wasn't like, my rating was 1950 at the time or something like that. He was like, that's whatever. But what you did during that tournament is you played like a 2150.
Yeah.
You beat a 2000, you beat a couple of 1950s, and you drew a couple of games, and you came in tied for first, right? You played like the way a 2150, which means you could play like a 2150. Right. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I like that he kind of focused on the performance rating as opposed to sort of the average rating. So that's useful. I think that trying what I try to, I mean, this is all stuff that I'm trying and failing with, but I think these are the things that I would tell someone else, and there's certainly the things that I try to tell myself is that if it's a process, if improvement's a process, then your games, whether they're training games or actual tournament games, are part of the process. They're part of your training.
Yeah.
And so you should be focusing on the process of improvement, not on the outcome, right? And so
ideally.
I should be playing ideally, right? Like good luck doing it, but you know, that mindset, I think, is if you could cultivate that mindset, that I should be playing a tournament game every week, not for any other reason than that's part of my training. Like how else are you going to get better? And if you look at my game history, it's pathetic. I play like, well, this year I've played 3 games.
Oh.
Right? And
that's really
before
not,
that, yeah.
Not a lot.
Yeah, no, and maybe last year I played maybe less than that. I don't know if I even played a game, or maybe I played 7 or 6 or 8 or whatever, but it's always because it's so hard for me to get myself to go to play the tournament, because it's so much pressure and so much stress and anxiety about it, the performance of it. And so I never feel ready. I never feel like I can play. And the reality is, like Boris has said, like I can play a lot of stuff. I've studied tons of stuff. If you put me, I may not win. I may not be putting my best foot forward, but there's a lot of stuff I could play. Just loosen up and play, and treat each game as an opportunity to learn something and improve. Like, where else are you going to get 3 to 4 hours of really intense concentration with no distractions but at a tournament game? Like, that's your training time. That's really the game. And we don't think about it like that, but that's really the way we should think about it. Like, I should be like, this is my opportunity to get a 3-hour uninterrupted opportunity to calculate as best as I can with the pressure of a game. And that's going to teach me more than anything else. Yet I deprive myself of that because I'm so stressed and anxious, and I put so much on it. And why do I put so much stuff on it? What are those rating points going to do for me? Yet I can't seem to get out of it. But there's so many great things that people have said to address that issue. Like I collected a lot of that. I think I put that in the book, if I'm not mistaken.
You've mentioned resources,
improvement advice. Yeah. Fabi was saying, like, you cannot replace the pressure of playing an actual tournament game. There's no replacement for that. So play as much as you can, right? And obviously I don't, and I think that's held me back by far the most. Like, I don't know if I have reached my level, because I've never played enough to know what that level could be. Like, I have plateaued in my rating because I don't play. So half the time I'm like trying to dust off cobwebs, and like I played it back in February, and I did fine. I had 2 blacks. I scored 2.5 out of 3, but my opponents were relatively less experienced, right? So they were like 1,400, 1,500, 1,600 or something like that, maybe. And the games were so stressful. Like, I won 2 and I drew 1, and and it was just a nightmare, you know. And the tournament setting was like all these kids running around and everyone sneezing and coughing on you, and the bathroom is disgusting. And I was just like, I got sick towards the end of the tournament, and I was just like, I just, you know, I don't know. It was rough. But the first couple of games, you know, I was just like, yeah, I won, but it was like I almost had a heart attack, you know, and like it was not enjoyable. So, but if you think about it, like as a process, like I was like dusting off the cobwebs. So if I don't keep playing, then I got to do that over again. And every time I go back to play, I have to do it again. And so I'm always sort of like dusting off the cobwebs, and I'm never actually doing it. And so I really was trying to address my issues in that chapter because I know from just YouTube content, you know, just listening to people and listening online, talking to people about chess, you know, watching your channel, watching all these different YouTubers and stuff. Like, this is what people, you know, weaker players, like they're struggling with that. I think, you know, like there's a lot to, well, anyway, I could go on and on, but what I see in the strongest players is they keep playing.
Yeah.
Like Fabi lost a game in the US championships, even though he won. He lost. No, he didn't lose. He drew. It was a drawn game that he was completely winning against Wesley So. Famous game now. Just happened a month ago or something, and he was in a completely winning position. And chose one queen move that drew by force almost, instead of another queen move that was like mate in 6 or something. Like, and he blew it. And listening to him talk about that, he was like, yeah, you know, it really hits your confidence. Like, I don't know if I can't mate in 4, what can I do? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you could see him really be upset with himself, but at the same time, he showed up the next day and he played and he won. You know what I mean? So like, they just keep playing, you know? And like, if you think, like, I remember like for me, very famously, Magnus was playing in a chess.com, one of those tournaments where they play like rapid and then quicker and then blitz and then bullet. You know what I'm talking about? There's like these tournaments where
I honestly don't follow these online things.
Okay. So there's a tournament format online where they start with like rapid, like maybe a couple of 15-minute games, and then they play 5 minutes with like 3-second delay, and then they play bullet or something, or 3 minutes plus 2. Okay. Anyway, it's something like, oh, no. I'm sorry. It's 5 plus 3, 3 plus 2, and then bullet. Okay. I think it's like a chess.com format that they play. And I remember a final where he's playing against someone. I don't know who it was. It might have been like Ali Reza or someone like that. And he's playing in a final, and he starts off terribly, and he loses like game after game, and he's like down like 4-1 or something, and he's like terrible. And then he sort of rights the ship, and he almost comes back at the end and wins, but he falls short. And when they asked him about like the disappointment of it, he was like, well, actually, you know, I was pretty happy with how I was able to fight back. You know what I mean? Like, he was not focused on like the win or lose. Obviously, it sucks that he lost because he's not used to losing, right? But his focus, like from a chess psychology standpoint, like his focus was, you know, I was down, I played terribly, I managed to sort of right the ship, and I really liked how I fought back. And so it's like, that's a really nice like perspective. I would have spent like weeks beating myself up about what a terrible chess player I was, and I should never play again. And
I can actually share. I found the solution to everything you've been talking about uh, by chance, and so ever since I started playing chess, I would really beat myself up when I would do poorly. My second game ever in 2016, third game, excuse me. So my first tournament ever, no experience, nothing. Mate, my friend, told me, "You're going to play this." He was talking about the Semislav. I literally didn't know names of openings, didn't know anything. And I'm playing this 2000s rated guy. I'm unrated. And I'm up a knight. I crush him tactically. I have a great game. And then I get made. And I remember coming back to my hotel room and crying, and I called my mom. I was 26. I didn't know what else to do. I hadn't experienced anything like that. I think it's very different to adult improvers if you don't experience that sort of pain, and the fact that you're the only one to blame. It's very hard to deal with if you hadn't experienced it before. And then for 7 years, it was sort of like that, better or worse. I would also struggle with showing poor performances on the channel. I'm immediately accountable. I have to. There's no hiding my results. Even though my channel is popular, I've still decided to cover every game. So it's very painful to show an idiotic mistake. And then this year, in March, something happened in my family, and I was truly afraid for the first time in my life. And nothing else mattered. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't think of anything else. That went on for about 5 months, and so it's okay now. Everything is great. But during that period, I would play chess to distract myself, and I actually played 2 tournaments. Those were the best 2 tournaments I'd ever played, ever, before and since. I didn't care about whether I was going to win or lose. I didn't really prepare for the games that much. I looked at my opponents, but I didn't do serious prep. And I played very well. And the only thing I remember is not being stressed at all, whether I was winning, losing, equal. It's not that I didn't care. I wanted to win. But it didn't matter to me that much. And then after those 2 tournaments, when everything got sorted out, I was playing a tournament in Poland, in Wroclaw. And for the first time in my life, I started with 4 losses. I had never experienced that before. I was winning in 2 of the 4 games, drawing in 1, losing in 1. And after round 4, I came back to the apartment, and I'm alone in Poland. I lose 4 games, and it's 1 game per day, so it took a long time to lose those 4 games. And the pairings get out for round 5, and I have a bye because I'm the weakest performing player at the tournament. And it was about 10 p.m. I called Milan, my coach, and I told him, "Listen, do you have 3 weeks?" He said, "Yeah, I do." "Okay, we're going to train for 3 weeks." And we made a training schedule. We basically agreed to train for 3 weeks straight in between Wroclaw and the Trieste Open, which was my next tournament. And long story short, I ended up in the last 4 games getting 3 out of 4 with 2 wins and 2 draws against great players. In the past, before this thing in my family happened, I surely would have given up and gone home. But now, this feeling of it's not that important, I can deal with it, remains. And somehow, by accident, and luckily without any consequences, I managed to get rid of my chess fear.
Yeah, because it makes it relatively unimportant, right? Like when something serious is happening, it puts things in perspective, like immediately. You're just like, this is just a game. Like, come on, let's be real. Yeah.
And I was actually just enjoying it.
Yeah.
I was just enjoying it. Even after the thing had finished, even the poor performance in Wroclaw, I was still happy to play the next day. And I was really upset that I didn't get paired for round 5. Normally, I just wish that I could, go back home. I wanted to play.
Yeah.
So somehow I fixed that.
But
now to my question, what do you think about your ability to change these things better than the average human without your professional background? Do you think it helps you that you're
It
trained?
hasn't helped. No, it hasn't helped me at all.
What would you tell a patient if they came up to
Yeah,
you and said, I have a panic attack every time I'm about to sit down and play a chess game during a tournament?
yeah.
What would you tell them?
I would tell them, no, I'm very good at helping other people.
Well, how would you help them?
I would say, I mean, fundamentally, right? We know from psychology that the single most important effective strategy for treating anxiety in general is exposure. It just is. So approach, don't avoid, right? So
Yeah.
the more you do and put yourself in the experience that you're afraid of or whatever, the less anxiety there will be. And if you just keep doing it, the anxiety will go down, right?
But
That's,
what if I
we
told
know that.
you, sorry for interrupting, but before this year, I'd played about 400 games, and my anxiety levels remained pretty much the same. So experience, at least in my case, made no difference.
Mm. Um, well, that goes against everything that we.
Sorry for
It goes.
ruining your field.
But maybe that's why I haven't improved either. I mean, we know. I mean, really, from treatment of anxiety, we know that like that. You know, if you do the thing you're afraid of, repeatedly, the fear will go down, right?
Sure. Yeah.
The anxiety, the anxious response, the sweaty palms, the heartbeat, all that kind of stuff. All that stuff will go down if you do it repeatedly. That's the treatment for all anxiety disorders, generalized anxiety, panic, specific phobias like whatever, fear of dogs, fear of flying, fear of bridges, whatever it is, fear of playing a chess game. It's all exposure, like obsessive compulsive disorder. You know, you create the situation that would engender the response. You prevent them from making the response. You do it over and over and over again, and they get better. Like it's not even interesting psychology. Like it's
Have
just
you
like,
noticed the difference personally? Have you noticed the difference in your personal anxiety levels and the way you deal with defeat now and when you first started out?
no.
Okay, so
No, I
maybe get some new
I
book.
I know. We really need. Maybe we should write the book together because I really think it's it's fascinating. I think that you may be onto something about like relatively relative fear. You know, because yeah, I think it's gotten much worse. It got. I mean, my oldest daughter now is 16. But I think it's gotten much worse with having kids. Like I've gotten much more afraid, much more careful, much more not wanting to take risks. And it's somehow,
We're
um,
talking about that being applied to chess as well. Or
yeah, I think that there's some like chess is a metaphor for life, right? That's what Kasparov said. And he's certainly right. If you're a chess player and you know this, right, you just think about life through chess, right? Like, oh, like I make a mistake, I'm driving my car and I go, oh, that was a tactical mistake. You know, like you just think about chess through, you think about life through chess. And I don't know. I think that yeah, it means too much. and there isn't, and our egos are so caught up in the game and what it means to our egos and to our psyche. And I really, I mean, it's really all about like it's almost like you know, that a loss is like a near death experience, you know,
Yeah.
and it's just absolutely awful. It feels terrible. And I think that somehow, like when I like having kids and everything, and it was like I just didn't like, I don't want to watch television shows that make me anxious and stressed. Like I think that
Yeah.
I've gotten much much more sensitive to all of these issues as I've gotten older. I don't know why. um, Other things have gotten better, but that's gotten, you know, much more. I've gotten much more sensitive about it. So I think maybe the loss feels worse. It hurts more. Um, I don't know. But yeah, I'm not solving the problem. I've been working hard on it. Like as I say in the book, like trying to train my psychology, you know, like so for the tournament that I mentioned this year, I played in back in February. Like I, you know, did all of this psychology work on myself, and I've done this periodically at different points in my life on different types of things that were upsetting or difficult for me. Like I don't like oceans and stuff like that, like water. I don't like going in the water, you know.
Yeah.
So I treated myself. I became a scuba diver, you know. And I've done things like that. Like it's always based on approach, don't avoid the thing
Yeah.
that you're afraid of. But for some reason with chess, it's like, and it's not even real. It's like
Yeah.
it's just a game, right? But it's somehow connected in the psyche to our real selves, and it feels it's like what is this? It's like Jumanji. We have to write this book, man, because look, it's like Jumanji, where if you die in the game, you die, and you remember you get those 3 lives in
Okay.
Jumanji. You ever see Jumanji?
Yeah, about 25 years ago.
Yeah, but not the original one.
I
But
haven't seen the other one though.
watch both, actually Jumanji and this Jumanji 2, both
Okay.
with the Rock and they're both great movies.
Okay.
We love them, and they're a lot of fun. And in the game, you have 3 lives, and the whole point is that if you die in the game, you die. Like
Yeah.
you have these 3 stripes on your wrist, and if you lose your 3 lives, then you actually die. And so they're like, you know, worried about, they're trying to get out of the game before they die, right? And I think that there's a connection between our psyches, our egos, and death, and you know, that is connected somehow with this game that feels like real life when it's not. And that's the
Yeah.
psychological experience that causes this kind of panic and this kind of like fear of playing a game. And
It's interesting that
I
you
think that's why your experience of having something make it seem like, oh, it actually is just a game. Like this, real life is serious. Like something happening in real life, that's really serious. Your health, loved one's health situations, like those are serious situations. What we're doing playing chess, and especially like when our livelihood is not on the line, you know, that's serious, right?
yeah.
And so the game becomes like, oh, this is just a game. And I think that's what helped you be able
Yeah.
to play with a little bit more freedom, or a lot more freedom.
I mean, I actually played well. I played well, and I at that point I hadn't been training for about 3 months. So no prep for the tournament, no tactical training. I just played well.
Right.
But you mentioned scuba diving and fear of water. I have exactly the same example. I had a fear of heights,
We're
and
like the same.
no, but I was
You
terrified of heights, and in order to beat
right.
that, I started doing rock climbing, and now I'm a rock climber, and I'm good. It's not that I'm afraid of heights. I don't care. That part's gone completely. I'm much better than at chess. I'm I'm okay. But I did it just to beat the fear of heights, and it worked. And in chess,
I
I never managed to
this
do
is
that.
this is really funny. We're twinning. I did the exact same thing. I used to rock climb, and I ended up I I was terribly afraid of heights, and I started rock climbing with my kids, and I was like, I'm gonna do it, and I worked, and I went every week, twice a week, and I started indoor climbing, and I went from bouldering to doing belay, like auto belay on the wall, and I was able to finally like get to the top of the wall. Like this took time. Like I would go up about 10 feet and come back down, and then I
Yeah,
would, finally I was all the way to the top, and then we went outdoors and we did a outdoor climbing trip that was a lot of fun, terrifying, but I was doing it exactly the same way for scuba diving. Um, Based on the same principle, but it hasn't
yeah.
it hasn't it hasn't solved the chess problem. But I anyway, like I did a lot of training, like psychology training, to try to get me to this tournament in February, and it was horrible. It was a horrible tournament. I
What sort
played.
of training did you do? Sorry for interrupting.
What kind of training?
Yeah.
The stuff that I'm talking about. Like it wasn't. I mean, I did chess training, right? But it was mainly like the stuff we're talking about, like sitting down, writing out, like what's important, what are my thoughts, challenging my thoughts. Like it's in the chapter too, right? I have
Yeah.
the 5-column thought record. That's a typical kind of thing that you would do in a cognitive behavioral therapy, where you would challenge your automatic thoughts about losing or winning, or mostly losing, right? Especially losing the winning game. I remember I was up a rook and I lost the game. Boris was he said, "Oh, that's a shame." That's a sh-.
I'm trying to
And
find.
but he oh, what are you looking for?
I'm trying to find that part. Is it the chapter
Oh,
12 or
it's
chapter
chapter
2?
12. It's chapter
Oh,
12.
chapter 12.
If you see the guy with the 3 bubbles next to him, and then like maybe 2 pages later there's a chart.
Okay, I'll
There's
find
a
it. You keep going.
there's a chart it's called the 5-column thought record. And doing 5-column thought records on my anxious thinking about what it means to
Yeah.
lose, and which I, or what it, or even in a game situation, which I think is what I did for that chapter, because I had the example of losing the exchange in a game against somebody in a tournament, and he didn't make a move for like 20 minutes, and it allowed me to sort of do that sort of exercise as I was playing. And I was like, wait a second, maybe my position isn't so bad. I've got the bishop pair, I've got this idea, I've got that idea. And I ended up winning the game. And it was really like, I had gone from like, I was dead lost, what an idiot, I lost the exchange, I didn't even see it. And I went to, here are my trumps, I've got the bishop pair, this, that, the other. And I ended up winning. So it was a good example of like challenging the thought process in the game. But what we're talking about now is like between games, right? And so what I
Yeah.
was trying to do was work with a couple of books that I really like around essentially this sort of confidence cycle of like, okay, well, I've got to get out and play. How am I going to do that? And working on like sort of mindfulness techniques so that I could sort of let go of these thoughts that are um, trying to protect me, right? That's what the anxious thoughts are. They're efforts by your brain, by your mind to try and protect you from death. Like that's essentially what's happening. You're equating with loss with death in your mind somehow, and so your brain goes into panic mode, and it's like, okay, well, I've got to keep you from that. We have to avoid that experience at all costs, right? That's what the brain does, but that's not helpful. Like, and I'm not living in the African savannah from 200,000 years ago, where if I walk around the corner, I'm going to get eaten by a lion, right? So your brain, I mean, we are, our brain architecture is the product of successfully solving life-threatening situations in the environment that our brains evolved in, right? Yeah. So that's why our brains work the way they do. They're out looking for danger. And so here we are voluntarily going to this very dangerous situation that could kill us psychologically, right? Death by chess. And it causes our brains to try to protect us and causes all this anxiety. And so I was practicing like, okay, here comes the thought, and acknowledge the thought, right? Let the thought go. Like some mindfulness techniques around putting those thoughts on like a leaf and sending it down the river in my mind, and then coming back to and engaging in the task that I was trying to engage in. There's an acronym in ACT, which is Acceptance Commitment Therapy, called ACE, right? Which is acknowledge, connect, and engage, right? So you acknowledge what your brain is trying to do, protect you, right? Let go of the thought, which is something you practice when you practice mindfulness or any kind of meditation exercise. You let go of the thought with many ways to try to do that. One is this one that I like, which is put the thought on a leaf, send it down the little stream, right? And then connect. So stretch your body out, like, all right, connect back to your body, which sort of like wakes you up, and then engage in what you're doing fully, right? Full 100% focus and concentration in what you're doing. So I was trying to practice all these kinds of techniques and all these kinds of things to help me get to the tournament, because it was touch and go, man. I just before the tournament, I told the guys that I was playing on a team, I was like, actually, it's Ben Johnson was on our team, right, from Perpetual Chess Podcast, and we were in touch, and I was like, hey man, I don't know if I can make it. Like this is not looking good, and he was understanding and so on and so forth. And then I was like, come on, man, it's awful. Like I really struggled. But I did get to the tournament. I performed reasonably well, like as I said, 2.5 out of 3 against lower rated players. And but it was so stressful, I didn't want to do it again, and I quit for 7 months. Until about a month ago, I was like, I miss the game. Like I really, there's nothing like it in the world. There's literally nothing like it.
You said that I found it really interesting that you compared a chess game with your brain knowing that it's going into a life or death situation. I think that's I've never heard that put that way before. I think that's really interesting. I wanted to ask you about the resources. You mentioned the golf book. I keep forgetting the title. What's the name of the book?
Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. Great book.
Yeah, I actually ordered the book, but I wanted to ask you about I think the only 2 books that have ever helped me deal with anything, more so with life than with chess. But Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl's book. Have you read that?
Yeah, Viktor Frankl.
Yeah, and The Enchiridion by Epictetus. I don't know if you know that book.
I don't know that one.
Both are literally 70 pages or long. Epictetus was a Roman slave. Now he's known as a Stoic philosopher, but I don't think he had considered himself to be one. The main premise is whatever you have, if you lose it, you shouldn't care because it wasn't yours to begin with. That's in very, very short and awfully put. And Frankel's book is, putting things into perspective and being able
Sure.
to turn on hardcore mode regardless of the situations you're put
Right.
in. So those are the only two books that have ever helped me with anything, but they couldn't help me feel less anxious during a chess game. And they have helped me
Right.
with, major events in my life.
Right.
Let's talk about
The book, just FYI, like the books that I like,
yeah,
there's a
sure.
guy named Russ Harris that's written some really nice books based on ACT, acceptance commitment therapy. One's called
Sorry,
The
say his name
Happiness
again. I
Trap.
won't write it down.
Yeah, Russ Harris.
Okay, thanks.
He wrote The Happiness Trap, and he also wrote, I think, a more relevant book for us, The Confidence Gap.
Okay.
And the confidence gap is all about what we're talking about, this confidence cycle of practicing the skill, going outside your comfort zone, right? Anytime
Yeah.
you go outside your comfort zone is going to cause anxiety. And how do you manage that, right? You use these certain types of skills to let go of those things so that you can actually perform, right? Perform, get less and less anxious. So
Yeah.
those two books I think are really good. And I worked hard with those books, trying to deal with my dread of playing. So I'm back trying to play, but I managed to play some training games with a couple of friends the other day. It didn't go well, but at least I played, so I think I'm going to try to play some training games and try to start playing again, but it's not.
Yeah.
I am. There's a famous commercial back in the 1980s in local television in New York called the Hair Club for Men. And the guy, it's all about these balding guys that look just like me, and they're talking about how you join, I guess, I don't even remember, you joined the Hair Club for Men, maybe they treat it, maybe they do hair plugs, I don't know. And then all of a sudden they show them with these beautiful heads of hair, and then at the end of the commercial, the guy that's been talking says, "I'm not only the Hair Club president, but I'm also a client." And they show the guy before with no hair, and then they show him after with this bushy head of hair. And that's me. Like I am trying to help other people, but I'm just as much a client as I am a professor, therapist, teacher, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I recently had a talk with one of my students who's been struggling. He's been dealing with depression and issues in his family and psychologically and stuff like that. And ever since I had this family thing this year, I finally feel relatively well equipped to talk to people about those issues from the perspective of a chess coach. And I'm going to give you one sort of idea from the Epictetus book I'd mentioned. He says, if you have a favorite cup, a clay cup, and if it breaks, it doesn't matter, you'll get a new one. If you have a wife and child, and if one of them dies, that's okay. I mean, it's a brutal thing to say, but it's a brutal
I don't know.
thing to
There's a
say.
difference between your family and a cup of coffee.
I know, but the idea is, if you manage to convince yourself that it's going to be okay if something happens, then it's already okay. It hadn't happened. It's not going to happen. And I actually had a talk about that with a student of mine, and we tried to put his chess anxiety into perspective, the same way that happened to me by accident, and it seems to have worked. He actually played a tournament. He felt way more relaxed than usual, and we did a sort of brutal thing where he imagined something terrible to have some comparison. Maybe this was completely wrong from a psychological perspective and
No,
what you would normally do, but it worked.
yeah. In CBT they have a way of challenging catastrophizing, where you imagine the worst case scenario, and you say, could you handle the worst case scenario? Like, would you would you be able to manage that? How would you be able to do that? And it sort of takes the dread out of it a little bit, right?
Yeah, sure. You said in
So
CB,
you're a cognitive behavioral therapy. We shorten it to CBT.
CBT. Yeah, okay,
as a
sorry.
short. But so you're basically an intuitive CBT therapist.
I wasn't trying to be, but he's my student, and he didn't want to play a tournament, and he ended up playing it, and he felt well. Yeah. I can imagine that working on this book with Grandmaster Gulko was you were sort of in the lead compared to the previous series.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I mean, no. I mean, just that one chapter. In all the other chapters, it was the same sort of thing. But they at Jakob Agard at Quality Chess, and we were sort of like, hey, I think I asked them whether would they be okay with me doing that, and I wrote a draft, and they were like, "That's really good. Could you finish that up? Could you make that like a more serious chapter?" And I did, and that's what ended up in there. I could definitely write a whole book on it, but it's I haven't succeeded. It feels pretty silly, but that's okay. That's life.
Did you feel like you were making progress while going through the specific topics Gulko had selected for the book?
Those have all shown up in games. All of them. I remember a tournament game. I was like bishop's fire backwards, and I was like, oh, and I remember there was a tactic that I won this game based on the bishop firing that we miss perceptually. We missed the bishop firing back. So that showed up in a tournament game. The sort of use of like challenging automatic thoughts during a game that came up in that example. So that was really useful. It's happened many times where stuff that we talked about in that book showed up in a game. Yeah.
I really like the book.
It's almost like practical chess play, really.
The
chess psychology. It's like, here are some themes that show up in practice, like, because maybe even more than the other books, right? I found like these little little nuggets of things, that showed up in actual games. That were about psychology more, like that rook, the bishop coming back, like we miss the retreating moves of the bishop, because we're always thinking forward, we're not thinking back. And so that stuff showed up in tactics and stuff during games that I remember. So I think that there's I think the book is actually very helpful from a practical standpoint, whereas like the other books feel like you're improving, yes, practically, but it feels like it's like the foundation of lifting you up as a chess player, But here it's like the psychology book is more like this is going to show up in your games. This is for sure somehow. I don't know.
It's there's seemingly a lot more utility because the book tells you these are the bad things that you're going to do during tournaments, and this is how to fix them in advance. So it seems like a ready-made tool compared to the Lessons with the Grandmaster series, which is, as you said, broader and more general. Is there anything you would like to add about the book? Did we miss something?
The last one thing I did want to point out that I thought was There's so many interesting stuff. Oh, destroying your opponent's thinking process.
Yeah.
I was
That
playing.
quote from Judith Polgar at the beginning of that chapter where she says, half of chess is, or is it reading your opponent's mind? But anyway, the quote by Judith Polgar that half of chess is being able to get into your opponent's mind and confuse them, and you cannot do that against engines. I love that. I don't remember if it was at
Yeah,
the beginning of this chapter.
that was in a that showed up in a tournament game. I was playing
Really?
this guy. Oh my God, I was playing this guy. And somehow he a long time New York like tournament player, a guy named Ed Frumpkin, great guy, and we played several times at the Marshall, and we're playing this tournament game, and somehow he managed to trick me into a Leningrad Dutch through move orders, right? Like he's one of these crafty players, you know.
Wait,
And
I
so
hope
like
you were playing white.
I was white, yes.
Okay.
I'm not that bad. But like I think I started off with like D4, D6, right?
Okay.
And I thought, all right, well, so you know, I don't remember the game exactly, but I think, you know, I must have played knight F3, or maybe I played C4 thinking, fine, we'll go into it. And all of a sudden it was like F5, and I was like, oh my God, I hate the Dutch. And like now, like this is why I play the London. I don't have to play the Dutch and that kind of thing. And I ended up having to play this game. And I felt like 10 moves or 12 moves, I was totally and completely busted. I was literally going to get mated. Like all he had to do was like Queen E8, come over to the king side. I could not defend. And I remember destroying your opponent's thinking process. And I was like, look, I was sitting at the board. My friend, I was playing the tournament with my friend Uri Feld. We've been playing chess together for 20 years, and 25 years probably at this point. And he goes to the bathroom, and I was like, I'm gonna sack my knight, and I just put my knight in the middle of the board, and in exchange for like I ended up with 2 pawns in the center that destroyed his thinking process. He was unable to adapt to the new situation. So even though I was literally just about to get mated, all of a sudden he was worrying about my 2 pawns in the center and pushing in the center. And I just sacked mine. It was like a tall sacrifice. It wasn't sound at all, but it changed the nature of the game, right? And that came straight from destroying your opponent's thinking process. And I was able to win the game, even though I was completely busted out of the opening. It's a really great example of destroying your thinking process. Yeah, and then of course losing winning positions. I mean,
Oh yeah.
how many I mean, that's the book. You know, you just write the book on that, right? Because that's the great
I
topic.
could name 100 games that I
hundreds of games. Yeah, you know. So anyway, I you know, there's a lot of good stuff in there, I think, for practical stuff. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, the book is very practical and very, very useful. It's fresh now, so I remember thinking how I had never managed to influence my opponent's decision making during the game when I was reading that chapter. And many times I was in lost position, and I think I intuitively tried to do what the chapter describes, like you sacrifice the knight, but I don't think I ever did it. And I remember thinking about going through my games in my head when I was reading that chapter, and I couldn't be bothered to get out of bed 2 days ago to check on my laptop to actually go through the games, but I couldn't remember a single one where I actually managed to change the outcome by doing something that's you know, makes my opponent think differently or stop thinking about what they were doing at the time. I need to start doing that. And even though I thought I'd been doing it, I haven't really.
Well, the next time you're in a hopelessly lost position.
I mean, you always try something. It's not like you're going to roll over and die. You try something, but I don't think it ever worked.
Right. Yeah. Well, I got lucky, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you for the interview. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, thanks again for being here.
Well, great to meet you, and keep up the good work, and maybe we'll play a training game sometime. I need the help. And you can beat up on me.
How strong are you, FIDE?
I don't know what I am FIDE, but my USCF was about 2000. It's I think I'm 2010 right now.
So I don't know how they correlate.
So I think you're about, that's probably, I think 100 points, usually about 100 points stronger. Like, I think that's what the usual translation is.
And then we're good training partners.
Yeah. So maybe we can get a game and it'd be fun.
Maybe. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Joel, for the interview, and see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
I hope you liked the interview. If you have any questions, post them below. I will try to answer as many as I can. I hope you liked the interview. I hope you liked the book. If you do decide to get it, it's a great book. Again, thank you to Joel for inscribing the book, and thank you to Joel for the interview. If you would like to review a book on Chessreads, you can find all the information on Chessreads. The link is below. Join our Discord if you have any questions. Email us if you have any, advanced questions. And thank you for watching. I will see you next week, Saturday, 3 p.m. Central European Time. Stay tuned for more chess books. Bye-bye.